This is the opinion page of the Los Angeles Times. So basically, it talks about her getting questions about being naked in a lot of her episodes.
Yeah,
I'm fine with girls. I like it most of the time. As far as her being nude, that's her prerogative. Like I don't have strong feelings one way or the other.
No, if anything, I think it's interesting.
Yeah, it makes it interesting. Yeah. There you go. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, it says the reason Dunham is so often naked on the show is because she continuously gets asked a question like these. In a culture where only traditionally beautiful women are asked to disrobe on screen, as example, Emilia Clarke on Game of Thrones, Dunham is forcing us to reconsider what bodies we value and why. It isn't just nudity, it's revolutionary. So she's forcing us to reconsider.
It has to have been written by a woman.
Right, a stupid woman.
Was it written by a woman?
I'm assuming.
Right?
Do you think when a woman is 20 pounds overweight and doesn't look fantastic naked, disrobes in front of you, does it force you to reconsider what you think is sexy?
Really, when people study what we're talking about, men. Really, we're talking about, and some women to some extent. And what we're talking about is how men and women, but men particularly, respond to, let's call it beauty,
right?
And it's all about fertility and fecundity and health and symmetry and all this kind of stuff. And that seems to be hardwired into us. Except, I will say that the trends, the periphery changes. When there was a time when Reuben-esque figures were considered very highly sexy.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue that I think guys still like that, really, in their real life. They may not translate quite as much in photography and film and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we are talking about images, not actually what guys like in their real life. You know what I'm saying?
Well, images is just what guys would like in their real life if they could get to it. They can't get to it. They can't crawl inside Fredericks of Hollywood flyer or a Victoria's Secret catalog, but they would. I mean, what's the difference between food? You don't see a picture of surf and turf and go, I like the image. I wouldn't personally eat surf and turf. That doesn't exist, does it? You don't see a picture of a pizza with a topping on it that you don't like and go, well, I love the image, but I would never eat that. You don't do that.
Right,
You're
right.
into the image.
Right.
If you see...
But what I'm saying is the image has characteristics that aren't necessarily reflective specifically of real life. But that's again, these are arguments around the edges.
Right, but she's forcing us to reconsider and reevaluate what we think is...
No, she's just causing us doing something interesting.
Reevaluate and reconsider what we're... Does it make sense to you?
It makes sense.
But this person's a writer.
Yeah. Oh, listen. It's.
Why do we employ these people? I mean, they're essentially liars.
No, because this is what they did all through college. They wrote papers and
know. They just shit out a bunch of bullshit.
But it impressed their professors.
And it impresses everyone around them who completely disagrees with what they're saying.
No, people buy it.
No, they don't. Nobody buys it. Nobody really buys it. Not with any explanation. Not with any exploratory.
You don't think that
process.
The woman that confronted you with the school to prison pipeline or whatever it is, you don't think she buys it?
On Huffington Post?
Yeah.
When I told her focus on family, focus on education, and she wanted to know about the school to prison pipeline?
That's right. She would buy this.
She buys it like Gavin Newsom thinks that check cashing places are put up to be predatory on black and Hispanic people, but they don't buy it. It's a talking point that makes them sound better than...
No, I think they believe this shit. I do.
I don't... Here's what I...
You may be sort of nonplussed or can't imagine that they do, but they do. I think they do.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. It's, I don't know, the person that has the end war bumper sticker.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they do believe they would not like war.
How about Reagan is a once a nuclear holocaust, or Reagan was a murderer? He wanted to kill people. They believed that back in those days. Remember?
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is if you ever took these people and you held their feet to the fire and you said, do you think that men are going to now change their opinions, or even women are going to change, or even the fashion industry is going to change its opinions on what's aesthetically pleasing to the eye of the other human being? I think if you pushed for some of this stuff, if you scratch around it a little bit, you never really get to it. I don't know. I know the Huffington Post people love making these proclamations because it makes them seem like heroes.
And I will say, listen, like the Gavin Newsom and the check cashing guys, they will go put people out of money who own those businesses and families in the street in the name of correcting this wrong that these people are doing. They'll actually take action on it. So they really do believe it.
Well, they don't take that much action.
But they would. If they had the opportunity, they would, is my point.
If they had the opportunity. There are again, there's the proclamations that people make to be on the happy side of the argument.
Yep.
You know, they go,
yes,
I believe no child should ever be left behind. And you go, all right. Well,
I agree. Some people do that. I'm not sure this is that person.
Let's talk about family and education. Yeah. I believe no child. No, every child is precious, and none. Then they shouldn't be left behind. And then you go, all right. Well, let's talk about how to fix that now. And then they have no answers.
Yeah.
Huffington Post has no answers other than the school to prison pipeline. That's all. They don't want to dig into what the problems are, because then they start. At that point, you got to roll your sleeves up, and you're going to get a little bit dirty. No, we can hear this nut job make her retarded assertion.
So what was it that you and Gavin Newsom were talking about? I mean, you were talking about poverty, right?
Gavin Newsom went on this jag where he said half the Hispanic and African-American people living in Los Angeles don't have access to an ATM or checking accounts. And I said, why not? And he said, what do you mean, why not? Or something. And I said, what's the problem? And he said, it's a multitude of problems. And I said, well, what are they? And he started off on this jag about check cashing places preying upon blacks and Hispanics. And I said, who else are they preying upon? And he said, everybody. And I said, then why'd you just single out blacks and Hispanics? And he said, because they're preying upon them. He did a bullshit, cowardly politician, talk in a circle, provide no answers, just make these broad sweeping proclamations that black people and Hispanic people couldn't get checking accounts. And my question to him was and still is, why not? What's going on? You mean if a Hispanic person walks into a bank, they're going to be turned away, or what's going on? And then you're a politician. What are we doing here to try to?
He didn't give you a good answer as to perhaps what he thought maybe some of the systemic causes are that
he had zero.
Leave minority groups in in positions where they are more likely to live in poverty and.
I gave him the answer, which is family and education, and we can all get out of this mess. And he said it was much more complicated than that. But then
what is a little more complicated than that, than just saying family and education?
Not much.
Oh, but come on. I mean, it's a system, right, where it is much harder to get out of a certain income bracket if you're born into it. If you live in a certain neighborhood,
right.
That's
why you have to focus on family and education. I'm not Christian or anything.
You're not going to solve everything.
It would solve everything, yeah.
Just family and education? What about, the drug war that we have that's failing? What about the school-to-prison pipeline, things like this?
The school-to-prison pipeline, if you focused on education, I think would interrupt the school-to-prison pipeline.
Well, the problem is that schools are maybe not focusing on education so much as they are on reprimanding children.
Okay. Well, listen, you can keep going.
All right, you don't have to agree with me.
You're going to fix it.
I was curious as to, what else you think that the solutions are.
Families intact, focus on education. Not that I come from that, but I have seen it, and I did see it.
You did all right.
I did all right, yeah. But I have white privilege, So, no, my family's divorced. I cleaned up garbage on a construction site, and I have no education. But I have seen in other families and in certain cultures, they focus on family and education, and it seems to
All right,
pull
so
them
you
up.
think that in other cultures it works. Let's leave it there. Let's talk about road hard.
We'll just agree to disagree.
Oh, God.
In
At least she
other
was good
cultures.
natured about it.
In other cultures, it works. Yeah, the cultures that are doing great.
I'm just glad you didn't say other ethnicities because that would have been
Well, what was her argument?
no argument.
What was her solution?
None. We'll leave it here.
Well, what about the pipeline?
Her argument is it's much more complicated. You didn't have any education, so you wouldn't appreciate the
Well,
complexity.
okay, but
And by the way, I'd love to see where you should have gotten into where she was raised. What happened?
Let me explain something. When I tell smart people it's much more complicated, they then followed up with why.
And what are we going to do?
When people say, I have a field of expertise, that field of expertise is building. So when I walk into people's houses and they go, oh, it's a 2-story house, and what we want to do is we want to take the kitchen and the dining room and the pantry and we want to blow these walls out and remove them completely and open the kitchen into one big grand area, I go, I don't say you can't do that. It's much more complicated. I say these are bearing walls. You have a second floor. Your master bedroom's right above this, and the bathtub's right, 4 feet away from this wall you're going to blow out. There's a ton of weight up there. It's a cast iron tub. We can blow this wall out, but if we blow this wall out, we're going to have to do some serious mechanical, structural sort of engineering here. We can take a header, we can pass it up in flush, or we can hang it down and put the rafters on top of it, or we can do some joist hangers and put it up in the ceiling. But in posts coming down, probably going to have to pour a pad. We're going to have to do some stuff here because we can't just blow out these 2 walls. It's complicated. They're bearing walls. Here's how to fix it if we want to fix it. But I don't just leave it as it's complicated and head into the next room.
Yeah.
The reason I don't leave it at it's just complicated is because I'm trained. I understand the answer. I will happily explain it to them. These guys are liars. They're no different than the fucking snake oil salesmen from, the turn of the century. They're really not. They're bullshitters. They know they're bullshitters. The reason they know they're bullshitters is because they never provide an answer. They never provide an answer. They're not liars in a traditional sense that they go like, oh, he's lying about this, or, it's not the kind of lying when a cop pulls you over and goes, have you been drinking tonight? You go, no, absolutely not. That's lying when you've had a 6-pack. They're not liars. They're politician bullshitters who want to be on the happy side of whatever the problem is. They don't want to address the ugly side of problems. Unfortunately, that's where the problem lies. And almost everything that is a cancer, don't examine the healthy part of the body. You have to go to the cancerous part of the body and really dig at it and figure out what's going on. You may not like what you see when the biopsy comes back. They work for a network that has a point of view and an agenda. They must not frustrate anyone on that network. They all are like-minded, and they all drink their own fucking Kool-Aid that they just recycle through their own bladders and back in the communal trough, and then they take another fucking ladle full of it. What you'll never hear is an answer. Yeah. Just like that. Oh, she had.
Well,
she came back. I mean, she provided plenty of pushback.
Yeah.
Her plenty of pushback was, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Not, here's why. I don't know any argument that works that way. You say The Who is the greatest rock band in the world. I say Led Zeppelin's the greatest rock band in the world. I rattle off 5 Led Zeppelin songs. You don't say you're wrong. You rattle off 5 Who songs. That's how arguments work. Yeah. I say Peyton Manning is a better quarterback than Tom Brady. I rattle off a bunch of Peyton Manning records. You rattle off a bunch of Super Bowls and a bunch of Tom Brady records. You don't just say you're wrong and you're oversimplifying it. That's how arguments work. But if you're arguing with someone that doesn't know shit about football and doesn't know shit about music and doesn't really believe that Brady's a better quarterback or that The Who's a better band, just really wants to shut you up because they're working for a place where it's all about Brady and it's all about The Who, that's what you get.
I would argue that they believe in concepts that they've constructed, rather than evidence and reality. And so they're not worried about things as concrete as problems solving of a construction problem because they're in a concept world where there aren't really those sorts of...
What about when it comes to the environment and the global warming?
You ever hear facts discussed there and the complexity of all that?
Scientists,
Yeah,
and more scientists, and more studies, and more scientists.
But the scientists, you don't hear the scientists so much because it's very complicated.
It's study after study after study. There's a million studies that say 2 parents in the home, an education, and the way to extricate yourself from poverty is getting married. Waiting to get married.
But they're in a conceptual world, the same world that this author's
all right,
in.
But then all the science comes back in
science
when
is
it
just
comes
another
to
way of
global
looking
warming.
at things. Scientists can make anything. They'll argue that,
But their next argument is about climate change, and they cite study after study after study. So are they into science or are they not into science? They're into science that helps with their agenda. They're not into science that flies in the face of their agenda. I don't, by the way, know how you can combat against family and education. But yet, they do. Why? It's coming from me.
Yeah.
And they're not heroes. By the way, with them at the helm, that pipeline's just going to keep getting wider and longer. With them at the helm. Because I don't know what they want. They don't know what they want. They want to stop construction on the pipeline. That's not going to work. Construction on the pipeline.
I would argue that they love systems and things, and they want to use the systems to solve problems. And you and I don't like systems. We want to break free of the system.
How's the system working?
No, I understand.
Should we give another 4 months? It's been years. It seems to be getting worse. So they don't know what the fuck they want. They're hypocrites, Drew. It's a religion to them. I don't understand the religious right. I mean, I understand them, but I don't believe they have a belief. It's blind faith. They have a strong belief. Many religions have a belief. It's not. Don't ask them to try to make sense of it. They just know. They at the Huffington Post just know. They don't like religion. This is their religion. They just know. They know I'm wrong.